Hello fellow paint pourers and YouTubers, my name is Maya of Maya Hussein Designs, and this is my second YouTube video ever. I finally decided I could just talk on the phone and do voiceovers on the phone, and that would work perfectly fine. I'm an amateur painter. Everything I've learnt from doing paint pouring in the last 3.5 months or so is from literally watching all of you amazing other painters on YouTube that are generous enough to share their time on videos, and also just joining a bunch of Facebook groups, and then you just sort of try things and learn as you go along, and that's what I would recommend you do if you're a new person starting out. So the painting that I'm going to show the method for today was inspired by a painting that I saw in one of my Facebook groups by this artist called Nathan Neal. He did this beautiful sort of seascape looking canvas, big one. So I thought I want to try that, and then he didn't really explain exactly how he did the method, so I sort of guessed it and sort of did my version of it. So this is the painting that I'm talking about, that I'm going to demonstrate later on today. So it's chakra colours or rainbow colours. I've personally named this piece Skittles because it looks like you want to eat the colours of the rainbow, or whatever the slogan is. So that's what I've called it. It's dried now, obviously, because I'm handling it. And just before I jump into the method as well, I just wanted to share with you what my pouring medium is at the minute. So paints wise, I use all sorts of paints. Not bothered. Anything that I can get my hands on that says acrylic on it, it's good. But I've tried to become more thoughtful nowadays, where I'm trying to layer. I mean, some people say it works, some people say it doesn't really make a difference, but I'm trying to layer opaques and semi-transparents and transparents, just, especially in a dirty pour or in a swipe, just to see what the effects are and if it makes a difference. For this painting, I think the orange was actually transparent, and it wasn't a good idea because when it dried, the red and the pink bled through to it a little bit, which I didn't like. So yeah, I would recommend for this type of painting, if you're going to do it, is to actually use the same levels or types of paints. And normally for swipes, I'd go a bit thinner than I would normally for pours or other methods, just because I find it gives better coverage in cells. Anyway, I'm rambling. One last thing before I get into my video is to just explain what my current pouring medium is. So I've used PVA, usually archival versions, and also I've tried playing around with Liquitex originally, but it cost a fortune, so I stopped, and I didn't really think I got great results for that. So I've now switched to something called Bindex, which is by Pebeo Studios. It's literally called acrylic binder. I think it's used sort of like PVA in craft projects. I think that's its intended use, but it also says you can use it to extend acrylic paints. So I find that if I just use Floetrol, I don't get enough binding action. So this is a much cheaper version of Liquitex or GAC or whatever the other ones are called, and it costs just under £10 on Amazon in the UK, which is where I buy most of my supplies. Even though I'm living in the Middle East at the minute, I go back home to the UK sort of every 2 months or so, so I stock up when I'm going home. So I use a mixture of this and Floetrol. So Floetrol I do think is good because it helps with the movement, but like I said, I don't think it gives enough binding, so I mix it with the Pebeo stuff. And then in terms of the actual mix, this is not as runny as Liquitex, but it's slightly more viscous than Floetrol. So I would mix about 30 to 40% of this with 60 to 70% Floetrol, and make the pouring medium up in I'll put it like a little container over here, like something like that, and then when I mix with my paints, I mix about 50% of that to, no, not, about 60% of that to about 40% paint, depending on the type of paint I'm using. And then if I need to, I'll add a few drops of water. And that's it. And then for silicone, I can mix it up. Sometimes I'll use this coconut hair oil. As you can see, it's completely covered in paint. Or I'll use a silicone spray, which I can't for the life of me even see what the name is called anymore. But I kind of use it the way Rick Cheadle does, where when he does dirty pours, he does 2 colours or so and then sprays, and then does a few more colours and sprays. So that's what I do with that. Just depends on my mood really, and kind of the effects that I'm going for. But yeah, when I did the swipe for this painting, I actually did mix in the hair oil into every paint. Okay, so anyway, enough babbling. Like I said, if you like what you see, please subscribe, like my video, and hit the bell if you want to know more videos that I'm going to be coming up with, which I am trying to do. It's just hard though when you're working full time and trying to do painting and trying to do video editing, so yeah, bear with me. Anyway, happy painting and enjoy.
So I just wanted to take a second to show you the swipe tools that I use. You can buy them in packs of 4. I think they're meant for wall plastering, things like that. Cheap as chips. And you need the different sizes and lots of tissue paper and wet wipes to clean off between every swipe, which is what I had to do here. Literally every swipe I had to clean up. So I start by pouring I'm doing 2 shades of purple. So this is like a little reddy purple. I start with pouring that, and then I do the darker purple. The darker purple is a more translucent colour, so I'm hoping when I swipe it's going to have lovely sort of transparent effects as well over the other purple. And then I have this gorgeous petrol blue, which is the beginning of my blue tones. This is made with mixing blue and green and a tiny bit of black, and I adore this colour. I've used it in other paint swipe pours as well, sorry. So then once I've poured my 3 colours, I swipe, and then I notice that I have a lot of paint at the end, so I drag that down again with the swipe tool just to thin it out a bit, because otherwise you're going to get big fat lumps. And then obviously as you go along, you clean up the edges and you try and match them up, because I think the look when it's bleeding over looks lovely, especially on a painting like this. So I spent a bit of time making sure I've matched the colours along the sides and cleaning up. Then I've got 2 types of turquoise. This one is the same turquoise which I'll be pouring in a sec, but mixed with a bit of the petrol blue. So it's like I wanted a proper gradation of colour as I went along. So you see this turquoise now is much brighter, which is getting poured. Actually, is it a turquoise? Yeah, it might be cerulean blue actually. I'll have to double check. I'll put them in the description, or if you ask me in comments, then I'll add it later, I suppose. So I see again what you want to do is pour at least 2 to 3 colours and then swipe. So that and then you try and do controlled swipes. Like I went a bit too far of the purple in the corner. Didn't intend to go that far. You just want it to lace very slightly at the end, but not take over like I've got a big blob of blue now, which I actually correct later on off camera. So once I've done the blues, I'm going to move on to my greens and clean up, as you can see. By the way, that shirt, you're going to see a lot of it in every single one of my videos, because that's my painting shirt. It's really mucky. I wash it probably like after I've done a massive paint session. It's comfy, it's my go-to shirt, so yeah, apologise if you see a lot of it. It's not particularly attractive. Also, the sleeve keeps wanting to fall down, but amazingly I have yet to catch my sleeve on any of my pours. I know I can't believe it either, but yeah, there you go. So see, I made a big mistake here already. I did just the one colour of the green and try and swipe that, and so again I'm not getting the laciness because there's no colours to move with it. And so that's a lesson I've learnt now watching back. I shouldn't have done that. So because I've got quite chunky swipe here, I try and get lacy effects using a bit of silicone and dragging and swiping the other direction, but it doesn't work. So don't do that. Do at least 2-3 colours poured before you swipe. I can see I keep trying to like get some cells coming up with the old blowtorch, but it's not really happening. And then I also think the green was too thick in terms of consistency, so it didn't move as well as the blues and the other colours had. See how lovely the blues laced over the purples? That's kind of what I was hoping to carry on through the whole painting. So yeah, lesson learnt there. So I go on to the next green, which is a lime green, and this green is a nice gradation colour onto the yellow, which will be the next colour coming up. So yeah, just think about the colour wheel and the colours and how if you're trying to do this rainbow effect. Again, I made the silly mistake of just trying to swipe the one colour over the other colours, and you're never really going to get cells and effects because you just don't have enough different layers to get that effect. So again, that was a bit silly. I don't know why I did that. Also, I want to explain something here. You'll see me doing a lot of getting the corner of my swiping tool and dragging it through bits of paint. And the reason I do that is I'm trying to break up those distinct lines. Like you know when you swipe, you've got a swipe line, like a straight line. And I want it to look more like a sun ray kind of effect, gradiated. So if you cut in on those lines while it's still wet with the tool, what will happen is it will break up the distinct line and blend it more. So yeah, that's what you'll see me doing every time you see the corner of my tool digging into the canvas. That's what I'm trying to do. So again, stupidly, I'm trying to use the torch to get cells out, but obviously nothing's happening because there aren't enough colours or layers at this point. See, there's me cutting in like I was explaining earlier, and that just softens up those lines. And at this point, I try to tilt, hoping I'll get more cells to pop up. But because this is quite a long process, I mean, this entire painting took me over an hour to do with the cleaning up the sides and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, when you try to swipe again and again and again, it's drying up. It's not going to work. So you can also spot pour in places if you see bare patches or you don't like it. Just pour the colour that you were swiping with and redo it. And that's perfectly fine to do as well while it's still wet. Just be brave. Don't worry about, thinking you might mess up. You can, to an extent, redo or re-pour certain bits. And I'll show you more of these types of tricks in future videos where I've done that to make my cells nicer as well. So then I'm onto the yellow layer. Again, I went wrong with the yellow because it was a very opaque yellow, and the lime green just before it wasn't as opaque, and then the orange afterwards is very transparent. So what's happened is that the yellows, again, I've just tried to swipe yellow on its own. Oh God, I'm cringing when I think back on this video. What I should have done is poured the blue, the greens and the yellows and then swipe the whole lot. So yeah, mental note for next time, I will be doing that. The yellow again is not blended as nicely into the green, and the green's practically disappeared at this point because the yellow is so opaque. So like I was saying at the very beginning of my introduction, you want to have similar opacities, I think, for this type of paint pour, because otherwise, you might get good effects, but I feel where I wanted distinctive gradation of colour like this, different transparencies didn't help that at all. And then you'll see in the orange, because it's so transparent and obviously a lot less dense than the paint, than the yellow and the red that follows it, it just takes over, and in the end result, it looks almost like I've got one of those, on the surface of the sun, what they call those solar wind things. It looks like that. It's just a bit too much. I mean, the lacing's stunning, but it's just like only in that bit, so it looks a bit odd. So you'll see what I'm doing. So then all of a sudden, I think my brain's kicked in here, and I realise I shouldn't be swiping individual colours. So then I've poured the orange and the red together, and then swiped through the whole lot over the yellow. And that's a much better gradiated effect, which is what I should have been doing for the yellows and the greens. And then you see I've swiped quite far out. So it's taken over the yellow quite a lot. And at this point, I'm thinking I want more cells, and I had far too much red there as well. I'm not a huge fan of red in general, so I think I was trying to thin it out. So I tilted quite severely in that direction. But doing that tilting's made the cells and the lacing come out in droves on the orange, which is a beautiful effect if I had that consistently across. What I also noticed to my horror at that point was that the blue had started pouring in the other way, but not lacing out. It was just a big glob of it. So then I had to go back, clean up my tool, and try and fix that blue later on. In the meantime, I just finish up this corner here. So I've poured magenta. It's a semi-transparent magenta. And it looked gorgeous, actually, blending in with the red and the orange. But then at the end I felt that it was a bit solid, so I actually get the original pale purple that I use, and I swiped a little bit of that in the bottom left hand corner, which I'm not sure if it's in this video or not, because it's turned into such a long video in the end that it may have been left out. But yeah, I hope you've got the idea of, I guess I'm going to call this method a controlled drag, and a controlled swipe, sorry. And I hope you've got an idea now of how it's done and how it works. Obviously with better paint consistencies, and I'm just going around fixing things now. Yeah, so with better paint consistencies and making sure you swipe across multiple colours, you're going to get better gradiated effects than I did in this painting. But yeah, I'm just trying to tidy up and get more lacy, wispy ends again, like I had for the original portion of this painting. So I just keep doing spot, oh God, I'm getting tongue-tied. Spot pause, and I'm trying to redo my yellow because I just felt like the orange was taking over too much here. So I'm I'm swiping the other direction into the orange here, trying to reduce the amount that was coming out, which I think's helped because it was still flowing. You can't tell that in the video, but the orange kept going out and out and out because it was so much less dense than the yellow. And that's the finished piece. Just trying to do a close-up so you can see all the lacing around the orange there. The corners are beautiful. It's the middle that I have real issues with. But people seem to really enjoy this painting, so I'm just going to let it stay as it is. And then just some stills here. So yeah, please subscribe and like if you've enjoyed watching this, and if you have any other questions, please write them in the comments. Thank you.